Hey everybody, welcome to Blessed Leaf Live. This is going to be a legit show. And I know I
Awesome
say that
show.
all the
Awesome
time,
show.
but I actually mean it this time. No, this is good. This is a super, like the most legit show ever had. We have a guest who is, I mean, this is a cigar celebrity. Okay? You don't
He's
have
a pillar
to
in the industry. Just
He
keep it
is.
real, dude. He's
We're
a
talking
pillar
about
in
a
the industry.
dynasty.
Come on.
This is a dynasty, a cigar dynasty that we have been blessed to have on the show today. You don't have to stare
That's
at
right.
Chris's goofy-looking mug the whole show, everybody. So we're blessed, and
He's far better looking than both of us together.
Boy, you guys are hurting then. I'm just telling you now.
I'm just saying, hey, you know,
Exactly.
She married for love, brother. Let's just keep it real.
I could relate.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm Kyle Hoover, the lead pastor of Blessed Leaf, and again, we're honored that you would take the time to light up a cigar and to join us and hear about cigars and hear about the Lord, hear about what God's doing in the world and in this industry. It's just a very, very cool thing to be a part of. So
That's right.
That's me. The other guy over there with the seriously long uncle-sized starter kit goatee is the executive pastor, Chris Kelly. Bro, what's up?
Dude, man, I'm super stoked, man. When you called me up and you told me who was going to be on the show today, I'm like, oh, dude, for real? Are you kidding me? I mean, the last time we got to hang with them, it was like 2012 in Orlando. That was awesome. So super
Dude, we
excited
didn't
about
get to hang
today.
with them. We got to meet him, and we were doing the pee-pee dance. I'm like, that was Charlie.
We were. Hey, it's legit when you finally get to like meet some of these people that you've heard about, you've read about so long, you've seen, and everything else. And then, who would have thought that IPCPR 2012, Orlando, Florida, and then here we are, May 2014, and man, he's on the show. He's on the show. It's legit. Dude, it's awesome.
Well,
I had to wear my Alvord Fire Department hat because things might get so hot. I mean, it's fitting to get real today. All right, fitting to get real.
Dude, where are you at, man? Where's your head? You're just all over the place.
I'm sorry.
Man.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to turn down the. I'm sorry if you could hear the pager over there.
Yeah, it's not just the hat he got at a charity function. He actually does like fight fires and save goldfish and all kind of stuff. In his spare time, he moonlights as a fireman, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
So,
Very cool.
But on that note, because we've been talking about him like he's not even here, our guest on the show is the one and only Charlie Torano from Torano Cigars. My friend, my brother, welcome to Blessed Leaf Live. It's good to have you here.
It's a real honor for me to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. It's something that when Miguel helped, Miguel Shodell, who's our national sales manager and really good friend first, when he told me about this opportunity, I was excited from the get-go. I have a lot of respect for what you guys are doing and how you're doing it. So really the honor's all mine. And again, many thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
Appreciate that. It's gonna be good.
That's
time.
so cool.
It's gonna be good times.
So cool. Well, if you want to follow along, if you haven't followed us on Instagram or Twitter, you can see right here I've conveniently placed it in my name bar. It's @blessed_leaf. That's where you're going to get all of our updates and how we can get our information to you really, really quick. So if you haven't followed us now, pick up your phone, follow us there for all of our updates and all of our legit content. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you like us. It's facebook.com/blessedleafcommunity. And yeah, there's just a whole lot of good stuff going on over there. So real quick, before we get into the meat and the taters, Chris, smack everybody with the deets, man. How can they Twitter stalk you, dude?
Dude, I tell you what, y'all are doing a fine job thus far. I think I'm fitting to break 2,000 on the Twitter, so I never really in a million years would have realized that many people would be interested of anything that I'd have to say, let alone almost 2,000 people. But hey, God bless. So y'all can follow me on
real quick before you say it's weird that all your followers are like from Rio de Janeiro and Brazil and like Ukraine and
Russia, Chinese.
I didn't know that many people were interested in you, Chris.
Well, I'm telling you, for $19.95 a month, you too can have that many followers.
Who knew?
I'm just kidding.
Who knew? Just a mere $20 a month can buy you that many friends. I'm just saying.
Wow.
No, it's all good. Echo 6 Kilo. That's the Twitter and the Instagram, and it's also the Facebook. Echo 6 Kilo. ECHOSIXKILO. Echo 6 Kilo. Follow me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Shout it out. and you're not going to get $20 out of me. I'm just telling you that right now.
Yeah.
Fine cigar, by the way.
And you're already smoking. I appreciate you waiting for us. That's cool. So, Mr. Torano, if you have some deets, some social media deets, how can people find you, follow you on all your social accounts?
Well, look, I think first I would tell you, if you don't know a lot about Torano, definitely go to our webpage at torano.com, Torano.com. Also, we have on our Facebook page, which is Torano Family Cigars. And then I also have my own Facebook page under Charlie Torano. My boys have tried to convince me. I have to admit, I'm not on Twitter, so I don't have a Twitter account yet, but who knows, I may get inspired after this session. But definitely Facebook and our website is the best place to find me.
Very cool. Now,
Nice.
the company has a Twitter, right? Is it Torano Cigars, or am I tagging the wrong people?
No, you're correct. You're correct.
I'm taking
Absolutely.
I'm tagging people in Ukraine that are following Chris. I don't know who you are. Shoot. Well, in preparation for the show, or I shouldn't say we, I should say I was sent a very nice pack of cigars that I think there was 2 of each of these, and so I'm assuming that they were intending, perhaps, assuming that I was going to share with Chris. However, they would be incorrect in saying that.
You made Chris buy his.
Anyway,
always get kicked to the curb. Always get kicked to the curb, man.
I'll leave you one. But if you can see those out there, I've got a good selection. I was informed before we went live that I needed to light up the Vault Blend A. Was it 008 or do you call it 008?
Yep, 008, and we also call it Vault Black, given that we also have a Vault Red.
Okay.
That's right.
Very cool. Well, while I'm lighting this up, I don't know. He's broadcasting from an undisclosed location. Are you allowed to smoke in where you're at?
Where I'm at, I cannot smoke. If had I known that this was a smoking interview, I definitely would have done it. But no, I can't smoke where I'm at right now, so I'm just going to enjoy watching you guys.
Yeah, well, you can smoke vicarious through me because I would definitely be enjoying this. But as I'm lighting this up, tell me a little bit about this blend. Tell the folks about this blend.
Sure.
The 008, that 008.
First, let me tell you a little bit of the background behind the brand Vault. Look, the family's been, and we may talk a little bit of history here. I'm not sure, but
yes, absolutely.
We've been in the cigar. I'm the 4th generation of the Torano family in the cigar business, and going back to the 1980s, and we can talk about some of the history further back in a little bit. But really, beginning in the 1980s, when my family started to transition from growing tobacco to manufacturing cigars, my father started to work on blends of cigars, and he started a blend book. And that blend book has been updated, and many new blends have been added to that book, over the last couple of decades. And we keep that blend book actually because while we have like any good company today, while we have all our blends in spreadsheets and technology, the neat thing is we actually have a blend book, almost like a big recipe book, and we keep it in a safe deposit box in a bank. And so while we're always working on new blends as a family and as a company, a couple of years ago we decided that instead of recreating a new blend, why didn't we go to that blend book and start looking at some of those blends and trying some of those blends that went back many years, and see whether we like them the way they were or we can tweak it a little bit. So thus, when you look at that band and you look at the box, it'll say blends from the Vault. And again, the Vault is what keeps the blend book. So a couple of years ago, we decided when we did that exercise, the A008, the 00 stands for the date, the year 2000, when that blend was originally configured. And when we smoked the blend, we made a little bit of a tweak to it, which was that we added. Well, first let me tell you what the blend has. It has a Nicaraguan wrapper. So what you see is basically a deep Colorado sun-grown Nicaraguan wrapper. But we have a double binder. The interesting thing here is one of the binders is from a place called Ometepe, Nicaragua. Ometepe is a volcanic island on Lake Nicaragua. And that particular island grows not a lot of tobacco, which is why we couldn't even blend it or use it back in the year 2000. But it grows a little bit of tobacco, which is very tasty, and the volcano on the island actually gives a richness to the soil that over the years good tobacco was grown. So we use it as a double binder, the Ometepe with binder from Honduras, And then what you have in the filler is a combination of different Nicaraguan tobaccos like Esteli and Condega. So what you have in the A008, to me, look, all of my brands, of which there are several, they all feel like my children. But we all definitely certainly have our favorites and our go-to. So while I will tell you, I hate to select some of, a favorite, but I will tell you that the Vault Black is one of my, one of my go-to cigars pretty consistently, because I feel it's a real kind of a medium plus in terms of its strength. I think the flavors are really well balanced. They touch all the parts of the palate, right? It's not a one-dimensional smoke. It's complex. I like the thickness of the smoke and a lot of the taste profile. So the A008 was the first blend from the Vault that was launched a couple of years ago, and then last year we launched the Vault D042, completely different blend. That's the Vault Red, and that Vault Red, the 04, now you know that stands for the date when the original blend was configured. The D and the 42, it just has to do with some of the location actually in the book, but the most relevant part is the year of the blend, which is 04. That's a totally different blend, and we can talk about that when you guys are ready.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say,
the stories always sound so much better when they actually come from, the guy, the original source. Yeah. You read about them and you hear about them and everything else, but when you actually get it from the source, I mean, it just adds that richness and that depth to it. It's awesome.
I appreciate that, and it really is. When you even take a look at the detail of the box, if you were to look at a box of Vault, we try to make the box in the style of a safety deposit box because it just kind of mirrored where the blend came from, and the tobaccos, of course, that's a different story, but it's a concept that we like. I always tell people that in our industry, we're like a blend factory, and by that I mean we're always working on new blends. That's part of the fun. It's part of what we enjoy, and so I will tell you the truth of the fun part about this business, of which there are many, but one of them is we're cigar smokers first, and by we I mean those of us in the industry. So just like you guys, Chris and Kyle, you guys love to smoke cigars. Look, I'm a cigar smoker. I have a cigar all the time. Unfortunately, not during this interview. But the reality is that, we're a cigar smoker first. So we enjoy cigars. We're constantly working on blends. But every once in a while, we said, look, why don't we go back? It's kind of like the songwriter, instead of working on a new song, goes back to some of those unfinished songs, of which he or she has many, and create something even more special than what he originally or she originally started working on. That's kind of what we did with this cigar, which was a lot of fun for us.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm serious. It's a very good cigar. It's to me, I don't everyone describes flavors different. It's kind of a subjective thing. To me, what I in my mind kind of classify as that Nicaraguan sweetness in the tobacco that I really like is there, because when you smoke a cigar and it's really dry tasting and it dries out your mouth. That's something I don't prefer.
I agree.
This makes the mouth water. It's got the nice Nicaraguan sweetness. The retro through the nose. I mean, it'll make you blink a couple times. It's definitely something that I like. I like that kind of a cigar. So I am really enjoying this, and it's very Nicaraguan-y. And having that, as Chris knows, having that Ometepe in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Man.
It's tasty.
It's a whole mouthful of goodness.
When you aerate the palate after,
right,
it's almost got like a vanilla essence to it. Perfectly balanced, complex. It's a great smoke, man.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this.
It's one of my, like I said, it really is one of my favorites, and I like a cigar with complexity. I like a cigar that leaves you wanting more. We don't really blend for a lot of strength. There's some guys that like high octane cigars, and Torano has really never been known for that high octane, knock your socks off blend. But I think we get good power and strength so that those who like a little meatier smoke, but it's all about the flavor for us.
Yeah, and another thing too, it's not dirty at all. It's very clean. The finish is perfectly clean. There's no garbage taste. You smoke some cigars and you're like, ha. The finishes, it's just perfect. Yeah, I would definitely go buy more of these. I'm really enjoying this cigar.
Well, and I think, and I appreciate that. And I think that, like I said earlier, some people are going to refer to it as the Vault Black. or the Vault Red. They might forget the A008 or the D042, but what you're smoking there is the Vault Black, and what we described is it's the Vault Black, if they remember that.
Very good. Everybody go out and give some Vault Blacks. These are tasty. Tell us about the red.
Yeah.
Now I'm all intrigued. I'm just like, Chris is not getting any of these.
Well, the red is a very different blend. First, we'll start with the wrapper. Now that you know the story behind it, the wrapper is an Ecuador Habano wrapper. And what's interesting to me, just a quick side note on that wrapper, I remember many moons ago where the Sumatra seed from Ecuador was a very popular wrapper in the market. You couldn't get a lot of it, but it was certainly a tasty wrapper. I remember the CAO Extreme came out with that wrapper and a few other cigars. But over the years, the most interesting thing is that the grower in Ecuador, they started to have some issues with the tobacco, and they started to experiment with the Cuban seed and started to grow this new wrapper leaf in Ecuador. And it's a very tasty. It comes in a variety of different shades, and so we use this Ecuador Habano wrapper grown in Ecuador for this one. The other thing that we do here is we use a little bit of Pennsylvania leaf in the filler. My father and I want to say, going back to the late 1990s, look, when you're in the tobacco business, you look at tobacco, you try tobacco, you experiment with it, and we tried to use some Pennsylvania as a wrapper. We could not. Some of the burn properties weren't there, and there were other issues. But we always kind of we liked the taste, but we were trying to find the right place for it. And so what we did in this vault was we added, when we went back to that 04 blend, we added this wrapper and we added this filler. A little bit of Pennsylvania, and what you get with this, and again, there's a Nicaraguan base to it, but what you get is it's stronger. It's actually a stronger smoke, Kyle. When you smoke it and compare it, it's a little bit stronger. It's a little bit spicier. It's definitely one that will, it's a great after dinner smoke for those that aren't used to smoking something quite as strong. But again, the flavor profile, I think there's a real interesting. You'll have to try. You've got to try something with a Pennsylvania leaf, and you'll pick up hints, almost like a little citrus to it that I like a lot. But the smoking experiences couldn't be more different between the black and the red.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah, I can't wait to light this one up, especially if it's a little bit more full body. Which, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm not one that likes the just nuke your palate kind of
right.
nicotine bomb or anything like that. This is in my wheelhouse. Again, I have to smoke this too for comparison, but just this on its own, I know I'm talking a lot, Chris. Sorry, but this is really good. That medium full, and just smoking it back up through the nose.
Right.
Man, it's very good and very Nicaraguan-y, which I'm just a total Nicaraguan fiend. I mean, I can appreciate a little Honduran in there.
Sure.
And I do like some Pennsylvania. I get it. Connecticut broadleaf. I get that, but that Nicaraguan soul. Oh man, that I like.
Well, I hear you. Well, I'll tell you an interesting story about Nicaragua that I was always told by my father, and it's been neat for me to watch it play out over my career. When I joined in 1996 in my father's business, or in this business, so it's been about 18 years now that I've been in the cigar business. At that time, remember, after the Cuban Revolution and all of those families fled Cuba, Cuba really was the only real cigar-producing country at the time, which is why Cuba still today retains this incredible mystique and this respect.
Right.
And but the reality is, all of those families, not all of them, but most of the families and most of the men, because it's primarily a male-dominated industry, the men that helped build that Cuban cigar industry, they fled Cuba, and then they started to create a new industry in the different countries, including Nicaragua and the Dominican and others. And what I was always told by my father was that Nicaragua was quickly becoming the real, the real challenger to Cuba in terms of taste and appreciation around the world. But then, as you probably know, in 1979, just as it was starting to be built up, the Sandinista revolution came in. They nationalized the properties again, nationalized the farms, just like happened in Cuba. We had an embargo against Nicaragua, the Contras, the fighting, and so Nicaragua shuts down for over 10 years, and that's where in the Dominican Republic, which again grows beautiful tobacco, don't misunderstand, but grows tremendous tobacco and becomes the largest exporter of tobacco and cigars into the U.S. So when you start in the 90s and mid-90s, the Dominican is dominating. Today, Nicaragua, that has now had since roughly 1990, when things got relatively resolved politically in the country and things got a little bit back to normal and you can start growing and investing again. Well, here we are, what, 14, no, actually it's about 20 years later, and now Nicaragua has taken its rightful place again, and it's starting to surpass the Dominican because, like the way you described your love of it, Kyle, that's how a lot of people in the industry feel about Nicaraguan tobacco.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right. That's right.
See, I love having dudes on the show that know all the cool history about tobacco because, like you said, first and foremost, we're just cigar smokers, and I would say, well, for Chris and I, we're cigar geeks, so knowing all the details and the backstories and the history, and that's just part of the cigar culture that we're in. We love to hear about. So on that note too, you've referenced your dad and your family and everything else. How did your lineage, your ancestry, get involved in tobacco? Walk me through the generations about how we arrived at today on Blessed Leaf smoking this cigar.
Sure, my pleasure. In 1916, my great-grandfather, a gentleman named Santiago Torano, he immigrates from Spain to Cuba. So he's a young guy, and just a quick little trivia, we went up to Ellis Island not long ago, a couple years ago actually, and we're there and looking at we were in a museum, and they have tremendous records of everybody who went through there. Just for fun, we looked up Torano, and Santiago Torano showed up. So he actually came in through Spain. We didn't know it, through New York, and worked his way down to Cuba. But so when he did that, which really was a shock to us. Obviously, we knew he ended up in Cuba. Didn't know he came through the U.S. But he immediately became, or pretty quickly after he arrived, became a leaf dealer or a broker. Namely, he would go. He'd buy tobacco bales from the cigar growers, and then he would take those bales and start selling them to some of the local cigar factories. And as he's building his business, he's fortunate enough to have three sons, Carlos, Jaime, and Luis. And Carlos Torano, that's my grandfather. These three sons, all three of them get into the tobacco growing business. And they all three have a passion. So now you have the father and three sons in Cuba growing tobacco, and the truth is that the Toranos became in Cuba one of the largest and really among the more respected tobacco growers on the island, not only selling tobacco to the Cuban cigar factories but also exporting tobacco to cigar factories primarily in the US. I tell people that maybe don't know as much history in the industry, but when you and I talk about Cuba today, we talk about Cuban cigars, right? Because the only tobacco that you can really talk about is a Cuban cigar. But before the revolution, Cuban tobacco was what was most famous, more so almost than the cigars, and that tobacco was exported to other countries and other factories. So a lot of people use Cuban tobacco. Well, my family was one of them, had relationships with the Newmans. I don't know if you know the Newman family. Eric and Bobby Newman, the distributors of the Fuentes, the makers of Diamond Crown, their father, their company is over 100 years old. Their father did business with my grandfather, and so we were primarily growers. Along comes the revolution. When the revolution comes, you know the story. Your listeners and your viewers know the story. Farms were nationalized, brands were taken away, and these men, including my family, had to decide what to do. My grandfather stayed behind a few years hoping that things would be politically resolved. Obviously, here we are some 50-plus years later. It's still not resolved. He went for a short time to work with the General Cigar growing tobacco in Connecticut, but where he makes his mark is in the Dominican Republic. So my grandfather, Carlos Torano, goes to the Dominican Republic, and if you Google him and read some articles on him, he's almost referred to as the Johnny Appleseed of the Dominican, because he takes this new seed, this Piloto Cubano seed from Cuba, and he and a few others, through something called the Tobacco Institute, begin to teach the growers there how to grow a brand new crop. Now remember, in the Dominican at that time, certainly tobacco was grown, albeit it was a small market, but they were using native seeds. Well, for the first time now they're using these Cuban seeds, and they're growing new tobacco. The tobacco looks different, tastes different, weighs different. But these men also, like my grandfather, since they had relationships outside of the Cuba, they not only taught them how to grow this new tobacco, but helped them find a market. And so, think about it. Now here we are. You fast forward 50 years, 50 plus years. There's a whole new cigar industry. You walk into any humidor in the U.S., and every cigar there was really born from the exodus that started, with those families, and my family was one of them. So and I listen. I know I keep talking here. I'm just trying to catch up to me now.
Keep going. Keep going.
My father. So here's my grandfather growing tobacco in the Dominican, and unfortunately he passes away at a young age in the Dominican Republic. The man had a passion for tobacco, but the truth is that passion, we believe in the family, also led to his death. My grandfather was growing Candela tobacco, and you may know a little bit about Candela. It's not as popular today, certainly, as it was back then, but Candela tobacco is, and back then it was wrappers. Wrapper Candela is you have to dry it in the curing barns very fast, and you have to apply artificial heat. Right? Most cigars or most tobacco, you hang it in the barns and you let it air dry, and it goes from that green color to the yellow to the brown. Right? When you do Candela, you dry it very fast. You apply almost some fire. There's many different ways, gas and coal fires, so that you can heat it up and dry the leaves very fast, and they don't go from green to yellow to brown. They stay green. So when I say Candela, I'm talking about that green wrapper. Well, some of that tobacco was being cured. The story is that my grandfather gets to the barn, and a few of the guys who have to monitor the barn because of the fire that's being applied really fell asleep on the job, and some of the barn, had caught fire, and some of the barn had been damaged. And my grandfather went into such a rage and was so upset that literally moments after that rage, he has a massive cardiac situation, and though he doesn't die on the spot, he dies a few hours later as they're rushing him back to the city. And so we've always believed that that anger, right? He gave into that anger. It led to, but it was tobacco related. I mean, literally. So when that happened, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just said, "Wow, man, that's crazy."
Yeah. No, it's a heavy story, but it's definitely. It's a story I know that my father always said to me he never wanted to get that angry because he saw what it did to his father, and it doesn't matter what the issue is, it's just really unhealthy. But so it led to he was only 58 years old when my grandfather passed away in the Dominican Republic, maybe 56. I got to think about it, 56 to 58. And I will tell you, the one thing that I tell people is we have the obituaries that were written about him in the Dominican Republic, for a Cuban who hadn't been there a long time, because he was only there for something like 5 to 6 years, and he died in 1970. And in the obituary, it said something that always stuck out to me. It said, Carlos Torano was a Cuban who came to the Dominican Republic to give, not to receive. And he's always been, there's a lot of people in the industry, even still today, that when I first started in this industry and would walk the fields in the Dominican and walk through the factories, that people would pull me aside. I was only 3 years old, by the way, when my grandfather died. They'd pull me aside and say, listen, let me tell you about your grandfather. Let me tell you what a great guy he was, what I owe to him, and the knowledge that he imparted and his passion. So it's part of the legacy that I've always been real proud of. Again, it's just, he's a family member. There's nothing that we've done, but certainly he was a guy who was very impactful in this business. And I've always wondered, what would it have been like for all of us in the family had he lived longer? Orlando Padron, by the way, or the patriarch of the Padron family, Orlando Padron not only knew my grandfather, but knew my great-grandfather very well. So I look at a guy like Orlando Padron, and you see what they've done in this industry. And I've always thought, what would my grandfather have done, and how would our business have been different? But anyways, life didn't work out that way. So my father then, at a young age, my father was a kid who was in Miami now, right? Because he left and he came to Miami with the whole Cuban revolution situation, met my mom, got married, started to sell computers, and was just a business guy. But when his father passes away, he's approached by some family members to see, does he want to continue in the business? And he does. I grew up in Miami, but my father then grew up growing tobacco with his partners in the Dominican, in Nicaragua, in Ecuador, and also in Mexico. So the family has been then, that's the third generation, if you think about it, from 1916, I'm taking you all the way now through the 70s and into the 80s, where Torano, Carlos, and Santiago are growing tobacco. But in the 90s, my father, through a series of things that again, we could talk for hours, but I'm going to cut it short, he decides to get more into the cigar making side of the business as opposed to the leaf growing side. And that becomes a very momentous decision, obviously, for us, because he gets to manufacturing private labels, and we eventually launched the Torano brand in 1994. So I joined my father in 1996 when we were already more entrenched on the cigar side than on the tobacco growing side, though, of course, I grew up around the tobacco growing, if not in the farms, certainly in the warehouses and the tobacco, and that's what my father did. So I joined in 1996 after spending 4 years practicing law. I was a commercial litigator and joined my father, and as they say, it's now been 18 years, and time goes by fast when you're having fun, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were a full-on lawyer.
Yes.
And you made the leap over into the tobacco business, the cigar business.
Yes.
Was that? Well, I guess it wasn't culture shock because you had grown up in it. It was part of your heritage, and you go to Thanksgiving dinner and you sit around and talk about cigars and tobacco. Am I right?
Look, you're half right, but meaning we did talk about cigars and tobacco, but it was a culture shock because, look, let's be real. I was a Florida boy in Miami. Unlike my father when he was with Cuba and his father, he grew up around the farms. I didn't grow up in Nicaragua or Ecuador or Mexico and these countries. I grew up in the streets of Miami, which I loved and had my family and friends there, but I wasn't as connected to the business as he was. And I tell the story a lot because I think it's not only part of my history, but for people to understand. I'm looking across. I'm talking to the two of you, and I don't know your ages. I'm gonna guess you're in your 30s. Would I be right?
Are you talking to me? Certainly, you're not talking to Chris.
Chris
is old, man. Chris is just for men.
I'm thinking I don't see any gray hairs anywhere like I got, so I'm thinking 30s. I give him.
Hey Charlie, I'm just hiding it, brother. Check it out. I'm just hiding it right there.
Oh man, all right.
It's all good. It's all good.
Welcome to the club. Well, then the example still works, even if I didn't get that right. But 30s and 40s, even 20s. When I was growing up, I'm a guy. I was a child. I'm 46 years old. I'm a guy of the 70s and 80s. Right? There were not young men. They were not young guys from 20 to 50 years old. They weren't smoking handmade cigars. That was something your grandfather did. That was something that skipped a generation. So I'm growing up. The business is declining, right? It's not a great business, right? What is romantic now and is popular to a certain degree, even though we're still a niche business, all these cigar stores, all these brands, these all started growing up in the 90s because in the 70s and 80s, it was dying. Literally a dying business. So I never had any idea that I would be in this business. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I became a lawyer. So back to you, Kyle, when you asked me, was it a culture shock? Listen, I went from a big law firm, to the factories in Esteli, Nicaragua. Truthfully, it was a huge culture shock.
I can see that.
And so
business in corporate America is run a little bit differently than Esteli, Nicaragua.
Listen, I'll give you a very concrete example of what you just said, Chris. So I come out. I practice law. I come in, and we're doing big business with different customers that we were making cigars for. But one in particular shall remain nameless. We're getting weekly shipments of a big quantity, right? We have big commitments to this customer. So I said, hey, Dad. One of the first impacts I can make in this business is let me see the contracts, right? Manufacturing contracts.
Right.
My dad looks at me like, what are you talking about?
It's this. It's this.
That's it.
Handshake.
I said, Dad, you got to join the 20th century. I mean, what do you mean? I said, you know how much resources and time? And he said, Charlie, we don't do it that way in this business. We do it on a handshake. And if we don't, right? And because the moment, Charlie, it stops being good business for them, then I want out and the other way around. And so even that was a culture shock. How to how to deal in an environment where I went from, writing CYA memos about, to my own clients, memo to client. I just told them we're probably going to lose this case. I'm documenting everything. I'm documenting my time every 6 minutes to suddenly we have big major commitments and it's on a handshake. So it was quite a culture shock on a variety of levels.
Wow. I bet.
That's awesome.
Shoot. Well, let me shift gears here a little bit. Now that we've come up to present day, now I'll talk about the future. I know you have some things that you're coming out with at IPCPR that we talked about just a little bit before we went on air. Can you give the guys out there and the ladies a little sneak peek on what to expect this year at the IPCPR?
Yes. If you give me, I'm going to try to take 60 seconds though, that you're giving me this opportunity to talk about the future. First, let me talk about the future of the industry, right? The future of the industry is at risk. I was on a conference call the other day, and literally the conference call began with, gentlemen, April 24th, 2014 may in the end prove to be the worst day of your professional lives. And that is because that is the day that the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, issued the first set of proposed regulations of the FDA regulating cigars, including premium handmade cigars. And since I have very little time, all I can tell you is that the effects of that on our small industry, I want to tell your listeners and viewers, the handmade premium long filler cigar business is less than half of 1% of the overall tobacco business. We are very small niche product, adult oriented completely. We do not in any way condone or in any way advertise to children. We are, it's all handmade. We don't add any chemicals to our product. This product, if you walked into a cigar factory today, the way you're going to see it made is the way it was made 150 years ago. There's no technology, and the truth is there's never been any association of, look, like I told you, I was a lawyer. We're in a very litigious society. I've yet to hear one lawsuit from anybody regarding the harmful effects of handmade cigars. It's not addicting, etc. I say this because this is the message we've been giving the FDA to hope that they will exclude premium cigars from regulation. If they regulate us, I think the industry will be unrecognizable 3 to 5 years from now. So it's under threat. Whenever the words of the future are used, I have to tell you, and let me just say, if you're listening and you're interested, I encourage you to go to CRA.org. That's the Cigar Rights of America, and you're going to have an ability to send in a letter, which they'll make it simple for you to do, to petition the FDA and have your voice heard. If you enjoy cigars, remember this. If this is the first time you're hearing about the FDA, unfortunately, remember my words. We are under attack. So, having said that, I still want to believe, with all the efforts that are being made, Kyle, that that there will be a future and a place, and so we continue to plan. Though we're a bit uncertain in the industry now. Specific to the future in Torano, we are launching. We're launching a new cigar, which I just want to tease out to your viewers and listeners, and that is, all of our cigars have been under the name Carlos Torano. That's always been in honor of my father and my grandfather, honors which they really richly deserve. But my father has retired now from the industry, and now I'm at the helm together with my cousins Carlos Yaca and Jack Torano and some other great people that I have the privilege of working with. And so we're going to come out with the first Charlie Torano cigar, and
Nice.
It's going to be launched at the show. The first shipments are going to be in the fall. So we're really very excited about it. I don't want to reveal too much right now, as we have a rollout plan, but just look for the new Charlie Torano cigar that will be coming out in about 4 months. It's something that I'm it's a little bit of a passing of the torch, and I'm excited about it.
Well deserved, brother. Well deserved.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't wait to smoke that, man. Cannot wait to smoke it. Do you hear that, Miguel? Are you watching? Hey, you got my address, bro.
He knows where you live.
He knows where I live. Well, that's very cool.
Right.
I appreciate the sneak peek. I know that about this time of year, all the cigar geeks like us out there get real get real enthusiastic and try to figure out what's
Right.
going on. It's kind of like whenever Apple launches a new like iPhone or iPad,
Sure.
and there's those little leaks of oh this vendor over in Korea, there was snuck out a picture of the case or the frame or whatever, and then everybody's just looking for what's coming out. So be looking for those, and if you're gonna have those at the show, I'm definitely swinging by the booth to pick up 1 or 10 and smoke them. That'll be great.
Absolutely.
But
we will make sure you get to sample it.
nice. Appreciate that. But shift gears here a little bit. We talked about cigars. Everyone's got their cigar fix. When we had Miguel on the show, I just got to say, man, quality individual, man, a brother in the Lord.
No
Great
doubt.
dude. I mean, you could just tell God is all over this guy. Just an absolute privilege to have him on the show and to even know the guy. But he reached out and said, hey, or actually, we actually talked after the show the first night. He said, you guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but man, Charlie's a believer, man. And I'm like, really? That's awesome, because to find as we've gone, the short time we've been in the industry. I mean, you're talking generations, and we're like, hey, we're almost 2 years in. This little bitty tiny experience that we've had in the industry. When we come across people who are followers of the Lord and everything else, I mean, dude, that's like the greatest thing in the world for us. Just to have that camaraderie of smoking cigars, and then you have that whole other part of it where you have that camaraderie of being followers of Christ and everything else. That just is the absolute best thing in the world to us. So when Miguel told us, I was like, dude, that is awesome. And I told Chris, I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if Charlie Torano came on the show, because he's a believer and everything else.
That's
so
right.
Here we are now, and I'm super stoked. But if you would share with us your testimony about how you came to know the Lord. Were you raised? Was that something that was in your family, handed down? Or is it something that you came to on your own? What's your story, bro?
My story is, I'm the first generation born here in the U.S., and both of my parents are Cuban. And as you probably know, the Roman Catholic Church or most Cubans are Roman Catholic. So I was brought up Roman Catholic. I went to so I was baptized as a baby. I did my first communion, and I really went to Catholic schools from 6th grade, from middle school through high school. Then I went to so going to church and getting religious instruction is an important part of my life growing up, but at the same time, it wasn't the most central part. It was a part of my life. And certainly I'd have a lot of religious discussions with my mother and my father. My mother's always had a very strong faith. But the interesting thing was my mother had a very strong faith, but she kept a lot of it to herself. Simple faith, which I respect very much, right? Some people are either very deep in their thinking and have studied their faith and are more comfortable talking about it. My mom had again, she would say to you, she believes, and she would show it through her love and through her actions, but she wouldn't talk too much about it. And I was always a talker. I was always asking questions. My father, on the other hand, he was willing to talk about it, but he wasn't as strong as a believer, to be fair. And the reason I say that is because when I go to college, I went to the University of Florida. I met my wife she would turn out to be my wife, Stephanie Henderson. I met her the first week that I'm up at the University of Florida. And while it took us a couple of years to get real serious, I had a girlfriend at the time, she had a boyfriend, and all those things that we all bring to the table when you go to college and you first meet. When I began to meet her family, her family were actually they went to the Methodist Church, and I didn't know anything about the Methodist Church. To be fair, as a Catholic growing up in Miami, and all my friends were Catholic, I knew very little about the Protestant churches. It was just not something I thought about, and I wasn't educated on. And I'll always remember that when I asked my wife, Stephanie, who, by the way, the church was very important in their family. My father-in-law, who's really one of my best friends and a mentor to me, Sunday school teacher, knew the Bible very well, and was the kind of guy that I could talk to. And I would ask him a lot of questions, and we'd have a lot of dialogue. When I went to ask for their blessing, so that I could ask my wife to marry me, I'll always remember what he said about where we would get married and where we would practice our faith. And he was more interested not whether we chose to practice the Catholic Church or the Methodist Church at the time, which were, at least what I felt at the time, were the two choices that we had, because she was Methodist and I was Catholic. But rather that we, as a family, that we would worship in one church, that we would choose, right? So either be the Methodist Church or the Catholic Church, however we decided to do that, but that he really encouraged us not to split. And I would go to, and so based on where I was in my walk at the time, certainly as compared to the strength and the importance that it had to my wife, Stephanie, we got married in the Methodist Church with my parents' blessings. And so to me,
Awesome.
I got married at a young age. I was 23 years old when I got married. It was after my first year of law school, and my wife had just started teaching, so we were a young couple, trying to make it out in the world. And I would say that my faith today and the importance of my faith, really, I give a lot of the credit, and a lot of the positive influence in my life has been my wife and her family. And so when you ask the question, as a Catholic, I've never been used to the question of, did you have that moment? And I know people have had that moment, right, where you can say, was it this moment where I asked, Christ into my life, where I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior? But I can tell you that while I didn't have a moment, I definitely, my faith grew tremendously as I was after I got married, and the importance that my wife gave it, and certainly my children. I have two children, ages 16 and 13, and they have been raised in the church since day one. They actually go to a Christian school, and it has been a tremendous blessing in our lives. Church is very important. Our faith is important. It's what guides us every day. A prayer guides us every day in this family. And so my walk has been like most, it hasn't been whether it be perfect or that perfect from here to here. But the truth is that my story was very much influenced by the woman whom I married.
Yeah, well, that's probably true for all of us,
Many
man.
of us,
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can speak for Chris on this too. That we're definitely better men for the ladies that we married, for sure.
Absolutely.
Without them, we were just barely functioning derelicts.
No question. Unfortunately true. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a fact. Well, next question
Absolutely.
for you. Being in the cigar industry, which people don't typically associate with God or Christianity. My background was being a pastor for 12 years at a local church, and that's where I met Chris. And then getting into the cigar industry, typically not really understood by people on the cigar side or on the church side. They're
Agreed.
like, okay, you're a pastor, and now you're going to go make cigars, or you're going to be. Well, yeah, doesn't that seem like a natural progression of a career?
Of course.
Of course, that makes total sense.
Sure.
But one of the cool things that we found is living out our faith and being that light wherever we go. The Lord has opened doors for us to be able to share our faith, to minister to people, to pray with people. I mean, all that different stuff. How does that look for you? How does your faith come into the business, whether you're manufacturing something or the people that obviously that work for you, being able to minister to them and bless them and take care of their families, and then all the way back when you're like you're going up to Virginia. You had said tomorrow, I think it was, to go do an event, or when you're out with the people that are smoking your cigars. Are there those opportunities that you see, and how does that look? Sharing your faith, or just being who you are in that.
Well, I think it's both. I think, as you said, I'm a believer that, and again, I understand, since I gave you my background, right? When I was growing up. Sharing your faith, or and evangelizing, that was not a part. That was not a part of my DNA. That was not a part. That's not something that we were. I'm not saying we were discouraged. Just something we weren't encouraged to do. So it really wasn't until it's something that I've always admired. Not to get too theological in the differences. Something I've admired about the Protestant churches is that focus on the Great Commission, right? Of sharing our faith, and and letting people know about Christ. And so, as I've gotten older, so first I think I think it's by our actions and how we live our lives and the decisions that we make, and knowing that we are being not only held accountable, but that people, I openly share my faith with anyone who wants to talk about it, and I do use some opportunities, and it comes up, look, he'll probably watch this show, I won't name him, but there's, let's say, even somebody in our office, right, who's not a believer and says flat out, that they don't believe. But we get into tremendous conversations where we're being very real with each other about why we believe and share the faith, and then, as you know, we got to let God do the work. So,
that's right.
So I definitely think I feel a sense of responsibility for the people not only that you lead, but the people that you come in contact with on a daily basis. It's my hope that as I meet the people, at my events and treat everyone with the respect that they deserve and how I want to be treated, that, and the choices that we make, that, through those examples, we'll shine the light. And so I think not only in the cigar business, but in all walks of life, we all have that opportunity. If I get to know you, Kyle, and I just meet you, in some place, I didn't know what you did, and you probably be the kind of guy to say, I don't know what he is into or what makes him who he is, but you'd want those that don't believe to say, I want a little more of that. And I think, every once in a while we'll bump into, let's say my wife and I will bump into people working at retail or working, and so many times you'll get people say things like, gosh, you two are the nicest people that have walked, and you say, well, how can that be? We're not being overly nice. We're being nice just like we would expect everyone to be, but I guess they've bumped into a lot of people in the last hour or two that weren't. And so I there's a connection that you make that I don't know. I don't mean to imply that you have to be a believer to be nice. I don't want people to mix up my words. I'm simply using an example that if you carry that spirit within you, hopefully people will see it. And if they ask about it, I'm a talkative guy. I'm definitely happy to share, my faith. Though I'm certainly no expert, certainly probably not as well versed as the two of you, but I can tell you, in the Torano family, and particularly raising our children and in our own lives, it's our faith is what's at our core. It comes first.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. That's awesome. I was reminded of, and I can't remember who said it. I want to say it was Thomas Aquinas who said, preach the gospel and if necessary, use words. I think that's very, very powerful, because a lot of times, people that are in the Protestant or evangelical world, we're very, very fast to just start running our mouth with people that we might not have any relational equity built up with, and it's difficult. It's difficult for people to be able to receive that, because they're like, dude, I don't know, you just knocked on my front door and started hitting me up with, would you like to know Jesus as Lord and Savior? And I understand the passion, but to have the wisdom and the passion together, that's where the Holy Spirit can work, and you're smart about taking those opportunities. So I think that's a tremendously wise way to live out your faith. And one thing you did say that was on the next question I was going to ask. Predominantly the audience that we have for this show, like you said, cigar smokers, it's predominantly males, men, with kids, young families, stuff like that. That's just kind of the demographic of the cigar smoker. And one of the things that we talk about a lot, and try to really highlight and to get wisdom about from different people, because God shows everybody apart, is with your kids, how do you instill your values, your faith in your children as they're growing up in your house? Take off the cigar hat, take off all that, but just as a dad. Sure. What are some of the things that the Lord has taught you that you say, hey, this works, this is best practices, if you will, raising kids that are going to know the Lord and grow up and be well-adjusted, men and women of God? You got any pointers on that?
I will tell you that, and not everybody has this option, and I totally appreciate it, but I'm just talking about us personally. We've been blessed. My kids go to Spanish River Christian School. It's a school it's a neighborhood school right around the corner, and they've really been going there. My daughter, since she was in pre-K, and my son started there in first grade. It went through 8th grade, and I can tell you that those children being in an environment where every day there was prayer, couple, chapels every time, a couple times a week, and that they could pray and talk about Jesus, and they had religious instruction on a daily basis, and the music. When we realize we understand what we're up against in the pop culture and the secular culture. I mean, we're between the music, the films. You know where I'm going. I
Right,
love
right.
that my children are spending time and have spent time in a place that has helped mom and dad and reinforce the messages of, be good to your neighbor, treat others the way you want them to be treated, about forgiveness, about Christ, and so that has been a real fundamental. That to me, when I've watched my children, I'm telling you that my son and daughter, by age 10, know more about the Bible, their faith, and could articulate it and personalize it to their way, to their life in ways that I probably couldn't until I was almost 30 years old. And
Wow.
so I'm very grateful for that as a parent. The second thing is I'm a huge believer in that kind of the family dinner time is huge. I mean, my house, and growing up it was the same way, but Steph and I with our two kids, we sit together for dinner every night. The nights that dad is traveling, and again, I've always balanced my travel. It's difficult in this industry, but I think in fact, some people joke with me about, in some respects, how well I balance it, because I don't have a reputation as a workaholic and a guy traveling all the time. Others have that reputation. I do not, because I was always clear that my priority was my family. I think that dinner time
Praise God.
is so special, and you have to, and we parent our children every day. Every day, we parent them, we teach them, we listen to them, and so, my wife and I, working from home today, I told you I'm traveling tomorrow. My wife and I work. She went to help somebody in need today, to be honest with you, and so we came back, we had a sandwich, and what were we talking about? We were talking about our son. He's 16 now. There's different. I don't know how old your children are, and I am. And, if you could, how old are your children? Do you have children first?
I
You all
do.
have children?
Yes.
How old are they? How old
See,
are
I'm
they?
just coming into those teens, so I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old,
Okay.
so I'm just coming into that.
Absolutely.
And mine are 10, 7, and 3.
Okay, so I've got one that's a little older than, and I have a 13-year-old too, Chris. But clearly 16, when you can drive, and some of the stuff that I'm hearing out there, it's a scary time. And so I feel very, I feel good about my son and his values, but at the same time, boy, he's getting hit with a lot of different things that, as parents, we've got to stay engaged and active. So, I think going to church, raising them, if you can, being intentional about parenting it's the key. I want to raise my children. I don't want the TV. I don't want, babysitters, and I don't, so that's what's worked, I think, in our lives. And, I'm proud of my kids, to be honest with you, not just because they're mine, but they've got a good heart, and they got that more from their mom, that's for sure.
That's awesome. And you know what's great, Charlie, is hearing men of God just taking the responsible approach, right? I mean, in our society, it's so easy to sit there and get wrapped up in career and in advancement. And you've been there. You've been in the corporate America world, and
Sure.
you've seen it. But to be able to sit there and just take a stand and say, first and foremost, right, my wife, my children.
Yep.
That's going to be the priority. Everything else needs to morph around that. And being unapologetic about that, just being able to sit there and just say, this is the declaration that I'm making before my God, before my wife, before my children, to say this is where my commitment level is. And being able to walk in humility and have you be able to say that, man, that's a great encouragement, man, because I wasn't joking in the beginning when I was saying that you are a pillar in the industry, and there is a sense of, and I know you know this, brother, I know you know this, that there's a sense of sometimes when people meet you and it's their first time meeting you, they might be a little starstruck. They might, have you up at a certain level, in their mind's eye. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, when I first met you in 2012, you were very approachable. You were very humble. I thanked you very much for allowing us the opportunity to spend time with you. And you were turning around and you were thanking us for being there. I mean, that's the type of people that, especially for men, that I would hope more men would just challenge themselves to be to be like. So, man, good on you, bro. I'm telling you what, man, that's very refreshing to hear, brother.
Well, look, I appreciate your kind words. I really do, and but like you said, I mean, we're all, we all have the same challenges, right? We all, we got to find ways of just supporting each other. I think, when we talk about the industry and also our faith, by the way, truth be told, I think the two of you are doing something extremely unique. I'm not the unique guy in the industry who's a believer. I think part of what you're doing is very unique in tying the two together. Because when I first heard about Blessed Leaf, I said to Miguel, "That's incredible. What's that about?" I never, in all my time in the industry and in trying to keep up with some of the things happening, I think that there's a certain boldness that you all have expressed to say that somehow that these are not mutually exclusive things. Some people tend to think that, well, if you smoke a cigar, you must be fill in the blanks, and I love the fact that you can talk about the lifestyle that is smoking cigars, that it's not some crazy lifestyle, but it's maybe it's something we haven't talked enough about, but that you get that lifestyle and that it is completely compatible with our faith, and that we can have fun and do both. They're not in competition at all. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's like Kyle says it very well. It's not cigars with a little bit of Jesus. It's Jesus with a little bit of cigars.
Absolutely.
That's where we need to be focusing at for sure.
No question. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you know what? Usually, I at the beginning of the show, if I've met the guest that's come on, I usually like to give everybody a background about how I met him and this and that, how we met him, and I didn't do that. But Chris jogged my memory. So the thing that we're referring to, this was at IPCPR 2012, and there was you guys had a big tent party. Remember that?
Sure.
And anyway, so we went again. This is our very first IPCPR. Man, we didn't know nothing about nothing, and we get a ticket to this, and I think you had to have a ticket to get in, and somehow we got some, and I was like, oh, I'm totally going in here. Go in there. It's all catered. It's posh. It's so nice. And there's this big, huge table of cigars, and I was like, dude, I'm going to smoke every single one of these cigars. So I just started grabbing. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to smoke these the rest of the day. I want to try all these because I remember I smoked so many Toranos through the years, so many, and I'm just like, dude, this is a go-to cigar for me. These are great. Was it the Exodus 1959 50 year? Is that what it's called?
Sure, yes.
That, dude, I smoked that, and I was like, this is the best cigar I ever had in my life. I love that cigar. So anyway, I'm grabbing up all these cigars, and I'm just like a kid in a candy store. And then the girl that was running the table, she's like, yeah, you can only take one. And I'm like, one? I already had my pocket stuffed. I was like loaded. I was already ready to go. And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to go tell Charlie because I just met him, and he was really cool. And he's going to come back here and smack you down. But I only took one. I put them all back.
You're the guy that we have meetings about every year before we do one of these parties, which is how many cigars should we bring? And it's like, well, let's see, if each guy takes 20 times 300, whatever.
Everybody gets a bundle. Yeah, I know. I don't do that, but at that party, I was that guy.
You were that guy.
I was that guy, and I didn't mean to be that guy, but I was that guy. But anyway,
so. That's just because he was starstruck. But let's be real for a second. In our industry, there tends to be a certain element in our industry that thinks that without you just mincing words, that sex sells. Sex sells your cigars. You need to have a certain person or a certain persona or a certain amount of skin.
That's why we have Chris around. That's why we have you.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to sit there and say, hey, I'm going to take a different approach. And I'm driving to a point here. You are our class. You represent your family history. You understand that you are standing on the shoulders of your father and your grandfather, and there's a certain reputation to be held. So there's no scantily clad women involved. There's no sex or vulgarity, or you have to have this certain roughness about you to do that. That in and of itself is very refreshing. So when you're coming into this, when we were coming into this your event there at the show and everything else, dude, it was high class. And I tell you, you know the show, you know the floor. There's not a lot of class in some of these venues you go to, but you know, for what you and your family and those that you surround you with your employees and your, you know, I call them ambassadors, because let's face it, they are your family's ambassador. They represent you, your wife, your children, your father, you know, all the way through. You know, it's just class, and so that in and of itself is very refreshing. And thank the Lord that we do not have to worry about Kyle and Chris showing any skin to try to, you know, make it in the industry, because that would not be a good thing. That would not be a good thing.
Amen.
So I say all that just to say I appreciate you, brother, for just being real and realizing that you don't need to be of the world to be in the world.
Thank you.
You are definitely you're doing proud. You're doing, you know, I'm sure the Lord is very proud of you, as I'm sure your lineage is very proud of you as well, as what you're doing in this industry.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Chris, very much. I really do. And like I said, we're not, as you know, we're all sinners, and we're not. None of us are perfect. But we're definitely, you know, those are the things we take seriously. Like you said, I want to be able to, you know, take my daughter to my booth and to show her my advertising and to show, you know. So there's, as you say, there are a lot of lines that we cannot cross, even though commercially they may sell. Well, we're going to do it another way. That's all right.
Praise God, brother, and kudos to you for doing that, taking that stand, bro.
Thank you very much.
For sure. Well, you know what just happened? We just made Time to Burn with Charlie Torano.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's right.
That just happened.
Some of us made Time to Burn. You know, I didn't get to burn one.
That's right.
I didn't get to burn one.
That's right. So later on, and I tell you what, I'm fitting to drive down to Rome, Texas, to pick up some more of that, so I can make some more Time to Burn, because otherwise Kyle will bogart all your scars.
Very nice.
I will make a lot of Time to burn. I have all day to burn.
I'll tell you what, you did pretty good on that cigar, because you smoked pretty fast then, right? That wasn't a small cigar. What size was it? I couldn't tell on the screen.
This one here?
Are you talking to Kyle or Chris?
Kyle.
Which one?
He's talking to me.
No, Kyle's going.
No, it's because it's a testament to how good the cigar is. This was the Torpedo.
Okay.
Belcoso. So it seemed like about a 654.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, about that. So yeah. Great smoke.
So real quick, because we didn't talk about the cigar that I was smoking, and I apologize, but the Salutum is the one that I'm smoking, and I did purchase my cigar, Kyle. Thank you very much, from my local tobacconist. So props to you on that.
But, dude, you got to go into the booth and you got to get a bundle at the show. That's the secret.
Listen, now
Charlie, I apologize.
Thanks to Chris, I can feed the family. Kyle, not so much.
There you go. Yeah, Kyle, not too much, but I apologize. There's many times that I have to change Kyle's cigar diapers, because he still does tend to, you know, find the manufacturers and just go in for the big win with it.
I don't do that. I've never done that. It's all a joke.
He does it.
Everyone thinks I'm the cigar weasel now. No,
it's all good. But the Salutum, why don't you real quickly? I know we're kind of bumping up on time, but I don't want to. This cigar, this got introduced to me, I believe, at the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was from Miguel.
You got it.
Yeah.
Is that when he introduced it to me? Yeah. But anyway, so every time I go down to
I can't remember.
Every time I go, oh my gosh, would you hush it for a minute? Every time I go down to Michael's Tobacco in Keller, Texas, great tobacconist, always make sure I pick up some. But why don't you real quickly give us a little bit of details about this particular cigar, and then also what was the inspiration behind the character of the name Salutum and what that represents to your family?
The inspiration for this cigar, honestly, was Miguel. Miguel, who's been a part of this family now for many, many years. I'm sure he told you his story. For those that don't know it, Miguel, as a very young man, was diagnosed with, fortunately, it was an operable brain tumor, but he had a very, serious health scare in his life, and he overcame that. Fortunately, they were successful in the operation and the medicines he's been able to take, and over time, so he's a healthy man now. But he was in the trenches for sure. And so Miguel was the driver behind the concept that was salutum. Salutum in Latin is a friendly greeting, but also within that box, if you look at the inside label, and off the top of my head, I think it's also, I think we also put it on the band. It says Vinco Vici Victim, which essentially means, again in Latin, it's a way, it's honoring those that overcome and overcome difficult situations. There you go.
Beautiful band. Beautiful.
Thank you. And so first the story behind it was the salutum, friendly greeting, but also with the theme of overcoming those, honoring those that overcome, the different trials that life, brings your way. Having said that, the cigar blend itself, the neat thing about this cigar, something that's a little bit different, is, well, first the wrapper is an Habano wrapper grown in Ecuador, but the filler, we use some Cameroon tobacco in the filler. We've used Cameroon in the past as a wrapper. We still use it in some of our cigars today. It's a very, very good, very sweet tobacco. But we found that we could use it in the filler, and in combination with some of the Nicaraguan fillers that we use, we feel we can get a lot of flavor and strength. But boy, that we can get some nice sweetness as well. And the combination of strength and sweetness is made for, for an interesting smoke. So when the cigars first came out, we did them in boxes of 12. Today they come in boxes of 18. So again, Miguel was the inspiration of it. It's a very kind of boutique part of our overall offering, but it's a cigar we're proud of, and it's getting known a little bit by little, more and more, through word of mouth and tastings, and through Miguel and places like these, giving us the opportunity to talk about it. So, like Miguel always signs off his email, "Salute him, my brother," and that's what it means. It's a good feeling.
Well, it's a great cigar, and to talk again about ambassadors on behalf of who you are. Miguel is a great ambassador and a great representative of your family and your organization in a whole. And I got to tell you, one of the things that is very, very, and Kyle can attest to this, that it has to be a very well balanced, and the finish on this cigar in particular is just phenomenal. It leaves you wanting more after you retro it, or whether it's out of your mouth, it doesn't matter. When you aerate your palate, it just leaves you wanting more. And to me, that is the quintessential of what a good cigar is. You want more. You want more. You want more. So
thank you very much.
Well done on this one. And I knew the story behind it, but hearing it from the source, it's always better to hear that. And so for those that didn't get a chance to hear the Blessed Leaf Live with Miguel on, now they get to hear it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to tell that story again, because again, Miguel was the inspiration, and all the credit goes to him.
That's very cool. Yeah, Miguel's good people.
No doubt.
We'll have him on again soon. We will.
I hope so.
But on that note, we are butting up against time, so I will say we're gonna wrap her up. But Mr. Charlie Torano, sir, thank you for coming on the show. I'll show you my hat here.
Thank you.
And it's been an absolute honor having you on, and welcome anytime, man. Any new cigars that come out, please come share them with us. We'd love to have you on and talk more about what's going on. So everybody that's out there, thanks for joining us for Blessed Leaf Live. We can help you in any way, prayer, counsel, however. You can get in contact with us via blessedleaf.com. It would be our privilege to assist you any way we possibly can. And if you are watching this and you're not a member of Blessed Leaf, this is a legit online church for cigar smokers and cigar enthusiasts, and you can join on blessedleaf.com. And we love you. So we'll see you next week, and God bless you, everybody.
Gentlemen, it's an honor. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Thank you.